Hello and welcome to your daily word.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Pastor David, and over the next several days I'd like to draw our attention to the pursuit of wisdom. Solomon was a man declared to be the wisest man who ever lived. He exhorts us over and over that we are to pursue wisdom. In fact, in Proverbs 3, verses 13 and 14, he tells us, "Happy is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding. For her proceeds are better than profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold." As I think about that, I wonder if I spend more of my time and more of my efforts in the pursuit of wisdom or in the pursuit of silver and gold, wealth, the things that it can buy. It's a good question to ask because it causes me to evaluate my priorities, to see what my values truly are in life. God asks Solomon a question one evening as Solomon began his reign after the death of his father, King David. The story is found in 2 Chronicles chapter 1 in verses 1 to 13. In verse 7, God appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Ask, what shall I give you?" It was a wise question, and it was a question of wisdom. Solomon had just begun his reign, and Solomon had earnestly sought God that day, the entire day, in front of the bronze altar, offering 1,000 burnt offerings to the Lord. And it was a simple question, but the answer that he would give God was the key to everything that he could ever want or desire in life. He could have asked for political or military power. He could have asked for wealth or fame. Or he could have asked for long life and health. But instead, here is what he asked God for in verse 10. "Now give me wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before this people, for who can judge this great people of yours?" The question God asked was a wise question, because his answer would reveal the real heart of Solomon. And it was a question of wisdom, for if answered wisely, it would bring the blessing of God Almighty upon his life, his reign, and upon the people of Israel. And because he chose to ask for wisdom and knowledge over everything else, God responded to his request. And listen to God's response in verse 12. "Wisdom and knowledge are granted to you, and I will give you riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings have had who were before you, nor shall any after you have the like." Wow. What a response. If wisdom is the key that unlocks the blessing of God and everything you could ever want out of life, then I guess the next question would be, how do I get that? Amazingly, there's good news when it comes to answering that question. Because you don't have to wait until you're 80 years old and have a head full of gray hair in order to have wisdom. You see, true wisdom has been deeply underrated by so many, but it is also extremely vital to leading a proper life, and it has been made available to anyone who truly and sincerely desires it. Some people think that the Bible is just a book of religious do's and don'ts. But in reality, it is a book filled with the wisdom of God that speaks to every area of life. It shows us not only how to live, but it shows to us how God intended us to live, that we might live life well. King Solomon's wisdom is spoken of over all the world these days, and there is none that compare to what his wisdom was like. In his writings in the book of Proverbs, he constantly contrasts the difference between the wise person and those who are foolish. You see, making the right decisions in life that lead to a life that is filled with the abundant blessing of God is dependent on the wise choices that we make. And they can only be made if we possess the wisdom of God. So how about you today? Right here, right now. How would you answer God if he asks you this question? Ask, what shall I give you? Now remember, God has also said in his word, you have not because you ask not. So God is asking you today, what would you ask of him? I hope you can answer that question wisely.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Come back tomorrow for the next Daily Word. God bless.